Welcome to the FemiNinja Project. I am your host, Cheryl Ilove, middle-aged ninja hiding in plain sight, dedicated to restoring human dignity one person at a time and helping you unleash your personal power. Discover that it's possible to look like a woman, act like a lady, move like a ninja, and think like a warrior. And remember, men are always welcome on the FemiNinja Project. Welcome to another episode of the FemiNinja Project, and thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. Today's guest is a fascinating young man. He is a mental health advocate, entrepreneur, the creator of Never Alone, and he's going to tell us more about that. And he's also going to share his story about how he overcame depression and how you can do the same. His name is Paul Marlow. And Paul, welcome to the show.
Cheryl, thank you so much for having me. And I have to learn from you because that is a great intro. I have been doing my own interviews and they are so haphazard. And I can understand why I see the analytics. No one goes past 30 seconds once I start talking. So this has been a good lesson for me.
Well, I thank you. Already we're learning things from each other. I just love that. And that's what I love about doing the podcast. It's what I love about doing the show, meeting really interesting and fascinating and inspiring people like yourself.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to be here, and I hope I inspire other people by the end of this.
Well, I think you will, because you do have a fascinating story. So tell us your story.
To be honest, my story is essentially from when I was 5 years old. After some therapy, I found out a lot of stuff in my life. But the most recent events that happened that have brought me to this point in life are around, this has been a while now, we're a year into this, around 4 years ago, I broke up with an ex, and she had her own struggles mentally, diagnosed and whatnot. And due to it, we had to make sure that she was going to be okay. She had to kind of take some anger out on me due to her not, due to a bunch of things which I just got thrown into and I didn't know what it was like. And I was like, wow, this is what mental health struggles are. That's the first time I'd really seen them. She made out of it fine. I made it out of it not as fine due to the strain it put on my life. And I'd never felt that strain before. I don't hate her. I still love her. She's amazing. She's working on it every day. But from it, I had to start working on myself, which I had never had to do. I never realized I had to do. I was blissfully unaware of my anxiety and depression. But from that, at the exact same time, my father got diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, which was something I wasn't sure what was come from it, what was going to happen. I hadn't seen it before, but I soon found out that the man that I knew was going to completely change, and he actually had an accelerated version of it called Lewy body disease, we believe, where it happens far quicker and things occur in his mind and his body. And essentially it ended up that during this time I was dealing with the anxiety and the PTSD like symptoms from my breakup. I was watching my dad every week change into someone I wasn't used to seeing, because I would come home once a week or once every 2 weeks, and I'd be like, okay, who's he going to be this week? And then after that, I would go back to my apartment, and then for the next 48 hours, I'd be in a completely low, depressed state. And at that time, I didn't think of it as depression. It was just like, okay, well, this is what's happening. But that probably happened for like a good 8 months. Every 2 weeks, that was the cycle, just kept happening and happening until the end. Like, he just didn't recognize me. And this was over, he got diagnosed, and this is like a year and a half after he got diagnosed, he finally passed away from a bout of cancer, which we didn't recognize because he couldn't really discuss what was happening within him because of the Parkinson's. So let's just say it was 3 years of some stuff that I never thought I would be a part of. I never thought would happen to me. And I didn't know how to cope with it, really. Like, I just didn't have the wherewithal. I hadn't thought about my health mentally before. I'm an athlete and I thought physically, and I knew all those aspects and eating and whatnot, but I just didn't know what to do. After he passed away, I actually had like I had a breakdown, where I just ended up in my closet, banging my head against the floor. What am I going to do? Sobbing. Stopped working for a month, went home to live with my mom, and she like took care of me. And I remember just making it through the day, no happiness, no nothing. Just wake up, eat some food, read a book, lay in my bed, stare at the wall. And that essentially like was the next year of my life. I
Wow.
made it through my days. I started going back to work. I paid the bills, but I stayed in debt. I worked out, but I didn't really see the progress I wanted. I didn't push ahead in life in any way. And like every few days, I'd be like, hey, when's this next bout of depression going to happen? Like, if it's fall, well, I know stuff's going to kick in here. Summertime, I'm really happy in the summertime. Why not happy? Like all these thoughts were going around my head. And that's when I kind of thought, like, I need to change this. This has been a lot longer period of sadness than I thought I was going to have from these situations. And what do I need to do? So I started just doing little things, focusing on creating a morning routine. What would be part of my morning routine? How do I create one that can last 45 minutes? It started with 5 minutes because any routine is very hard to start with. That's eating healthier, understanding that, like eating 5 cookies because I'm sad is only going to make me more sad in 45 minutes because the crash from the sugar and carbs in my gut, my body doesn't digest it, and it's going to actually make it worse than it will be for that 5 minutes of sugar high. Going to therapy, doing MDMA therapy, journaling.
What's the MDMA?
MDMA therapy. MDMA is the party drug Molly. MDMA, a derivative of ecstasy.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not legal in neither North America, Canada,
Okay.
or the States.
Good to know. Do I need to edit that out?
No, actually, I hope you keep it in because it is. I don't know if you know of MAPS, which is the term. I'm gonna draw a blank on what exactly it is, but they are working on psychedelic drugs to help with therapy.
I'm not real familiar with it, but I have heard of it.
They are doing clinical trials with actually MDMA therapy for PTSD in soldiers and civilians. And I listened to a Tim Ferriss podcast, and they just did a $30 million roundup of their first startup for that. And they're putting big money and big people behind it. And using those, like, so that's kind of like, we're not going to get completely into subject, but MDMA, mushrooms, psilocybin, and all that stuff in a therapeutic setting. And for me, it was a game changer. It allowed me to open up and to talk about things that I had in the back of my head, but I was too afraid to admit to myself or admit to anyone else.
Right.
That's what MDMA does. It kind of loses your inhibitions, go down. You're allowed to talk about things in areas that might scare you, but they're like, not so scary in that situation. So actually, I did write a blog on it. We can link to it in here if you like. That's a whole other podcast.
Yeah, well, we're going to include the links to all of your content so people can get hold of you.
So yeah, if they want to do that, there's a blog and it talks a lot. I do video. There's a whole bunch of stuff in there from that. But I just started working on myself. I just started focusing on bettering me mentally, physically, as a human. I have relationship issues, friend issues. I'm afraid to stand in line at movie theaters for some reason. Like whatever it is that just kind of made me like, why am I like this? I'm like, let's address it. And while I started addressing that, I started sharing those things on my social media, on my Instagram, on my Twitter. And just like, that was when I was having down days and I wasn't kind of out of the funk, and I'd share the down days and I'd share the updates. And then I'd share the thing I was going to try today to hopefully make it a good day. And if it worked, I would share it with those people. And then if it didn't work, I'd be like, hey, to be honest with you, it didn't happen very well. I stopped showing my highlight reel on social media. I just started showing honesty. And
I absolutely love that. What kind of a response did you get from your
th-
followers? Because
that is why
that's,
I'm here today,
yeah, that's
because
so real. People want to
yeah,
hear the struggle.
yeah, yeah, yes, they 100% do. They don't want to see the perfectly curated photo every time and the video of you always hitting everything perfectly and doing it.
Right.
So I didn't think of it beforehand, and then I started doing it, and it was hard. It's not easy to show those things that make you vulnerable.
Yeah, I know.
It really isn't. But as I started doing it, it made it easier on social, but then it also made it easier for me as myself to go and do things that were hard. Like it was kind of a stepping stone to help me move forward. But I started having people commenting on the posts, people DMing me. That was it, really. Like a few months into it, I had people DMing me, and like some from like Germany and around the world, saying, "Thank you for this. I appreciate you sharing it. Then thank you for sharing this. I tried it myself and it really helped me." Or thank you for saying you go to therapy. I'm a 35-year-old male and I've never been. Where can I go? How can I do this? And I'm like, hey, type in Google therapists around me, click the first three, send them the same email, put it out. 2 weeks later, the guy's like, I just went to my first therapy session. Thank you for so much for sharing it with me. I'm gonna keep going. Like that was like, okay, something's here.
I mean, that is so incredibly powerful to be
Yeah,
able to
yeah,
impact somebody like that and to have them take that first step.
yeah,
And because
yeah.
a lot of people are afraid to do it. I mean, there's a certain stigma even today, which I think is really silly, but there's a stigma around, going to therapy or mental health or admitting that you have a problem. And that's just so silly because so many more people are really suffering when they don't have to. But when you're really in it, you feel so stuck and so lost and like
Hmm.
there is no way out. So you're really giving people, even from a distance, a lifeline.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. And like, definitely, there's still like, no matter how much we talk about it, like, it is getting talked about more with mental health, which is amazing. But it's the act of doing is different than the act of talking.
Hmm.
And I believe my platform, Never Alone, like, really, my basis is let me help you make the first step. Like, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a like, I'm not there to like talk you off the wall. I don't want to be like, it's, first of all, it'll be stressful for me. Like, I just don't want to have to keep creating stuff like that. But the thing is, like, I will help you get the first step in the door. I will help you find a therapist online. I will help you find a workout plan if you don't know what it is. I'll help you try to find foods that work for you. I'll help you find 10 journal prompts to get you start journaling today.
Hmm.
Because I do believe, and this is from my past years as a personal trainer, I've been 10 years as a personal trainer. It's not about like once you're in it, it's about starting off for the general public. Like,
Right.
and these are the people I think that need the help the most.
Hmm.
These are also the people that aren't admitting it yet. I believe a majority of the population has something going on, and there's only like 3% of us in the mental health realm talking about it, and not advocates, like people just saying I got issues because they really are struggling.
Hmm.
But I believe there's like 98% more people in the world that are struggling. They just haven't realized it yet. They're not willing to admit it. So I believe I can kind of be that middle ground. I can be that regular dude who shows everything and just is out there, and like, I'll put a nice suit on, I'll do this, I'll look goofy with my mom, I'll, like, I'll have my highs, my lows, I'll be my businessman, but I'll also be that guy that's like, it's over today. Like, I can't do it today, so I'm gonna try to do it tomorrow.
Hmm.
And I think that's a connection point that's not happening in the world right
You're not a coach, right?
now. No,
You're an advocate. But
I'm gonna say no. I kind of hate the word advocate. I
okay.
really do. Uh, Maybe if we can help change like what advocates are and look like. I feel if you're an advocate, the majority of the advocates I see online and stuff like that, that's great, they're doing amazing things. But I really think it puts us off to another angle from that regular person. That regular person who doesn't think they have mental health problems is not going to listen to an advocate, in my mind.
Hmm.
Because advocacy, we're talking 24/7 mental health. We have our one niche, we know. We have this. Like, that is what I've seen. Now, there are people that aren't like that, but in general, the mental health advocates are really like, I'm yoga 24/7 and I'm therapy and I'm, like, they have their thing that they follow.
Hmm.
And I think it's very hard for the general public to like really latch on. Like, I'm going to be with you 24/7 and listen to everything you have to say. Like, no, I'm going to come in for bits and pieces.
Mm-hmm. I really appreciate and respect that, because I'm kind of like the same way. It's let me show you the way to try and get into a better fitness, especially,
Hmm.
as we're getting a little bit older. I'm a recovering physical therapist. I don't know if you saw that on my profile.
Hmm.
But so I don't want to be the one that's coaching them and taking them every single step of the way, but let me tell you how you can do that and give some options, because everything isn't one size fits all,
Hmm.
because we are
Yes.
so different.
Yeah. And just in my mind, just the thing that I have, I believe advocacy is kind of a one size fits all area at the moment, because it was so underground for a long time and you kind of had to really find your niche of people. I believe with social media, we can expand that, and advocacy can be expanded, and maybe I can help take that to a change. Or we just, I don't know. I just don't like, I don't put that out there on my name because I feel it will turn off a lot of people before they get to understand what I'm doing.
You're a spokesperson.
Yeah, let's go with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I say regular dude, but that's not much of a
I
much of a
like regular
pitch.
dude, but
Let's go spokesperson.
a spokesperson who is a regular dude. That works.
Yeah.
So tell us about Never Alone.
Never Alone was like the next step after people were DMing me. I was like, I'm also, the second thing with this is mental health and business. It's a weird situation at this time,
Mm-hmm.
where a lot of people are putting a lot of time in to help people. However, a lot of people are like, are you profiting off someone's mental health? Then we have a situation. I where I'm going with this is like personal trainers, dietitians, everyone's helping someone, and you get paid well to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Why are mental health advocates and businesses around mental health being looked at as you're trying to make a dollar off this to help someone?
Mm-hmm.
Well, no, I have to keep my lights on. What
Mm-hmm.
can I do? Where I'm going with that is because I thought to really make this hold and to have something long term and to really help people, you need a cornerstone. You need something there for them to gravitate to and then seek off all this other information on the sides. And that was, I came up with the name Never Alone. And then I came up behind that. I'm like, well, I want a product. And I didn't have online products. I didn't have like an ebook or something. And that wasn't in my realm
Mm-hmm.
of knowledge. And I thought, well, why don't I create a piece of clothing that is not a piece of merch? Because I believe merch is a cheap way of saying clothing. And I believe it's a cheap product, just in my mind. If someone says they're going to sell merch, I want to create something that of value that I am proud of, that they can proudly wear around as a lifestyle piece, which will then, if someone asks them about it, they can talk about the mental health side on the back end,
Mm-hmm.
but they can also buy it on the mental health side on the front end and then talk about the clothing on the back end, and they kind of correlate together. I don't want someone buying this just because they like the name. I want them buying it because of those two things. But also at the second time, a lot of my mental health, anxiety, and depression was because I wasn't successful in my life, in my mind, as a person. I didn't like working for companies. I didn't stick around with them long. I understood I need to work for myself, but I hadn't actually had a business where I'd really succeeded. And I was like, well, this is something I have dealt with myself. This is something I'm passionate about, and I believe I can help people. I'm like, I think I can also change the way mental health is looked at. So I was like, this is my initiative, but this is also my business plan to help me be more confident in myself, which will help my depression, which will help my anxiety, and help me learn about myself. So Never Alone became that project. And
And
I
when did
spent,
you launch Never Alone?
this is also another long story. So essentially I spent 15 months creating the Never Alone hoodie. Like, I created from scratch. I didn't do drop ship. I
Mm-hmm.
went to a tailor, got a couple different looks how I wanted, tested them out, like went through the whole process and created my own hoodie of how I looked, how I wanted to feel.
Mm-hmm.
And that took me about 15 months because I'd never done that before.
Mm-hmm.
So while that was happening, I was planning out every other move. And then I was gonna get a Kickstarter going April 15th of 2020, which, if you can remember, the start of COVID was rearing its head.
Mm-hmm.
um, so much so that I think it came into my town, like Vancouver. We had already started shutting some stuff down by that time,
Mm-hmm.
and the markets were getting hit. I'm like, I can't drop a Kickstarter where you're asking someone to give you some money, and 3-4 months later you're going to give them a piece of product and you want them to share it, and you know it just wasn't viable in my mind. So I spent about 3 months getting the Kickstarter created, and then within 30 days I completely transitioned that and got an e-commerce store made, and I launched the whole e-commerce brand on May 12th.
Wow.
Yeah, that was a learning experience.
I was just going to say, I mean, even just the process of developing your own line and what
Yeah.
you wanted it to look like, that had to have been simultaneously very exciting and terrifying.
Oh, 100%. But like I said, it actually helped me find my way to a comfortable place being me with my anxiety and depression and just general life. Because with that, I was kind of, when I started it, I was at my lowest of lows. I'm like, what can go wrong?
Wow.
And that was kind of it. Like, everything was, what can go wrong? Nothing can be worse than this. So why not try? And for the first 30 years of my life, I never thought like that. I was always worried about what could go wrong. And that
Mhm.
stopped me from doing anything I really wanted to do. That stopped me completely. So this was, okay, let's create a hoodie. Well, how do I do that? Well, let's Google this. Okay, I have to talk to someone. I'm going to call this person. If it doesn't work with them, I'll spend $500, but it'll be a learning experience. And then I'll change it up to someone else who might know some more. Well, I'll probably have learned from that experience, and it won't be a failure. It'll just be a growing piece for the next one. And every week that happened. It was the next thing, next thing, next thing, kind of a fail, 2 steps back. I learned from it. Okay, I'm going to divert this way and do this. And that was with the clothing. And then I realized with myself, that was the same thing with my workouts, with eating. Okay, well, that food wasn't right for me. Or I felt really good after that therapy session. I didn't go for 2 weeks. Maybe I should go again. And I started just putting my whole life kind of made sense in these two areas, my business and myself.
So it sounds like you had this incredible self-awareness, this growth of self-awareness as you were going through this. And I love the fact that you were saying how, well, if you make a mistake, it's not really a mistake, it's a learning experience, and then you learn from that. And also the fact that you were pretty much at rock bottom. And it's
Mhm.
almost like from that experience, it almost triggered your creativity.
Yeah, yeah. I'm gonna say it didn't trigger. Yeah, you're right, 100%. It didn't trigger it. I had it. I was just too afraid to use it. I'm 6'7", 230 pounds, ex-athlete, drafted by the Toronto Blue Jays. I do some modeling. Like, people look at me like, "What do you have to be afraid of?" And to be honest with you, I've been afraid my whole life of what people think of me, of doing something wrong. Like, I really have second guessed everything, and like in a crowd of 30, I'm still like not comfortable
Hmm.
walking into it, but it's far better. But it was just that thing, like, screw it, why not? I say the F word usually. I'm not sure if you like swearing on this thing, but I'm
Well,
just like,
I try and keep it user friendly, family
it's
friendly, let's just say.
it's like, F it, why not? Like,
Right.
do it. What can go wrong?
Hmm.
There's so many worse things in life that could happen right now.
Hmm. It's
So
an
yeah.
interesting perspective. I've been there many times myself, and a lot of it, through the martial art situation. But yeah, after going through some of the tests and going through the ranks of martial arts, and at one point for my black belt, it was all a random attack. So you
Hmm.
had one person attacking you, and you had to take them down, and then you had two people attacking you at the same time. You had to, disarm the weapons and take them down again, and then you had three. And it's
That'd
like,
be insane.
I'm a little middle-aged. Well, I was middle-aged. I think I'm past that now. Ballerina. I'm small, I'm 5'7". I'm a girly girl. And it was like, this is just not going to happen. But after you do something like that and you realize, huh, I can do this public speaking. What's the
I
worst that's going
bet.
to happen?
I bet.
Even if three
That's
people
amazing.
come and attack me on the stage at the same time, I have some skills.
That's amazing. I would love to have seen that, and I wouldn't be able to handle it anywhere near what you did. That's for dang sure.
Well, it took many years to get there. I mean, it
There
wasn't
we
like,
go.
you sign up for your first class and then a year later you're doing that. No, it took a while.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
Or that's one way to do it. That's dang for sure, and it'll work for you. That's the
yeah.
thing. It's everyone's different.
Well, when you were talking about establishing a routine for yourself,
Hmm.
that okay, you started with a morning routine and you started with a 5-minute routine rather than a
Hmm.
45-minute routine.
Hmm.
So it gave you a chance to wrap your head around that. If I can do this, then I'm making progress.
That's it. 100%. And the morning routine, like if I didn't get it that 5 minutes for the start, that's fine. I could go back to bed and I would just wouldn't do anything because I would have been in bed anyways. So what's the
Hmm.
point? It doesn't matter. And then
Hmm.
tomorrow, I just try to make it 5 minutes. And if I make it five, then I make it seven the next day.
Hmm.
And it was just slow increments, slow, slow, slow.
And it's the same thing as you were talking about with the food and the therapy and journaling and
Hmm.
everything. And I think the big mistake that people make, they want to change their life and do it all at once. And
Yeah,
that doesn't work because it's too overwhelming.
yeah. No, 100% agree. It's kind of, and it's like your social media. Like everyone is on social media now,
Hmm.
and everyone knows how hard it is to grow. If you get one thing that goes viral, okay, there we go. But when was the last time you heard of someone doing that? There's so many people doing something. It's impossible to go viral and be that next hit tomorrow.
Hmm.
So how often are you posting Instagram? How often are you creating a podcast? How long are you doing things without being seen and noticed?
Hmm.
It's the exact same thing. You're not going to be seen. No one's going to notice the changes in yourself at first. You're going to see them.
Hmm.
Then you'll have people coming up 3, 6, 9 months later, like, oh, you look better. Oh, you're happier. Oh, you've lost some weight. Oh, you did this.
Hmm.
That's when they come. It's not you reaching out for them to ask you, but when they do come because they start seeing the changes in you because you're making changes yourself, that's when the ball's rolling. You're like, okay, I got something.
So, what little pearls of wisdom or bit of advice would you give our listeners if they're going through a really rough time? And there's a lot more people who are struggling right now, I think, because of COVID and the
Hmm.
fear, the anxiety, the uncertainty, not knowing what's going to be happening in the future. Kids are home, parents are homeschooling. It's just a really crazy time.
Yeah, I can't speak on that because there's so many things. What I can say is what I told everyone from my personal training to this time is find something. What are you good at? Like, what is your one strong point? Like, is it in the gym? Is it eating well? Is it cooking? Is it your business savvy? Is it your ability to work with others? Like, there's something in your life that is kind of like who you are and what you get. Now, take that and think, okay, I didn't start this way. How did I get to this point? Or if that falls off, what do I do to restart it? Like, what's my very basic to go through? Because no
Hmm.
matter how good we're at something, we'll find out we kind of overstep ourselves and we're like, oh shit, I went too far. Excuse my language. I went too far. See, me just being a real guy, like I don't mean to swear, but I put it out there. That's just who I am. But it's like no matter who we are, how good we are, we kind of extend ourselves at certain times. Not always, but like we go like, I can achieve this. Like, no, I went too far. And you kind of have to break it back down to the very basics and be like, okay, where did I go? Boom, 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 next step, next step. And this is one I missed. But can you move that into your mental health? Can you move that into your physical health? Can you move that into this new life of COVID? Okay, it's not so daunting if I break it down to think, what am I going to do today to
Hmm.
attack this one area that has been giving me stress and giving me anxiety? As in, like, I can't go to the gym. I haven't been to the gym in 6 months. Okay, that's fine.
Hmm.
Break that down. What are other ways? So, what does the gym do to you? It makes you sweat. What are other ways to sweat? Walk up a hill, do 20 squats in your kitchen, do
Hmm.
100 push-ups in your bathroom. Like, what's that going to be? Or what's your other thing? Can you find these things within you in a nearby area where you don't need to pay rent, you don't have to do this stuff, and like just start? It's not what you want 6 months from now, but it's what you can do today. Do that for a week, figure out the next thing next week, figure out the next thing next week, and build that up like you do the other things that you're so good at.
Excellent advice. I love it. How can people get a hold of you?
You can, I'm a social media guy. I'm on my Twitter and Instagram always, probably too much. I should be focusing more on my business. But it is at Tall Paul's Life, Instagram and Twitter. And we are neveralone.co is my website where you can read the blogs. I upload a blog, 1 to 2 blogs a week.
Wow.
Where I tell never alone stories, where I get mental health advocates, anyone essentially who has a story that they want to share about a mental health, physical health, a struggle in their life that they hopefully have a learning point to. And they share it through my blog, and we do a whole write-up, and I usually do an interview with them and put it into it also. So there's some really great stories on there, ranging from a 64-year-old, actually an old client of mine who turned into a weightlifter and was obese prior to that, lost 80 pounds, holds a Olympic medal, not Olympic, but a World Masters Games. She's been there. From that to someone who used running to help his anxiety through COVID, to another person, Hannah Green, who's just been launched this week. It's going out, and she has been homeless for 403 days in the UK. Finally just got on her feet, has used surf therapy, which I'd never heard of before, has been a huge thing that helped her at surfing, and using the calmness of the water and attacking the waves and getting the feel for it and overcoming something that scares you. And she is doing amazing stuff. She's on BBC lately and stuff like that. So there are those. And then I write my own blogs, and you can also check out the clothing line, and every single sale goes back into the content creation, because Cheryl, as you know, it takes a lot of time to create this content.
Yes, it does.
And sometimes it takes money also.
Yes, it does. It does.
I can't afford it myself.
I hear you. I hear you there. The other thing I love about the stories that you were telling about some of those people who made those incredible transitions, all of them included something physical.
Oh, yeah.
And yes, I'm all about moving. You know, movement is life. It doesn't matter what your passion is, or even if you're not someone who's physical, just get out of the chair and walk around the house. You'll feel better. And like you said, take those first steps, small changes, and they make a huge difference.
Yes, you're 100% right. That is one of that's my cornerstone that I talk about as much as possible. I believe the world will be a far better place. Americans, Canadians, everyone, if we all just start focusing on our bodies and not worrying so much about the pills we put into it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, Paul, thank you so much for being on the show. I just love talking to you.
Cheryl, thank you for having me. I really enjoyed this, and I hope it stops snowing where you are.
Where I am. Well, it's supposed to go on for another 24 hours, which is just fine. You know, I know.
Well, it's 2020, so what can you expect?
Well, yeah, exactly. It's been quite the ride, hasn't it?
It's not over yet, unfortunately.
No, it's not. Thanks again, Paul. And
no problem. Thank you, Cheryl.
Thank you for listening. I really appreciate it. And just remember to check in with yourself. Slow down a little bit. Start getting physical. If you want to make changes, just small changes are really effective and give you the most benefits. And check out Paul's website and just take care of yourself, because that is the way of the FemiNinja. And that's a wrap on another episode of the FemiNinja Project. Thank you so much for listening. And remember, be safe, be strong, and until next time, bye now.